Hi everyone, welcome to this masterclass on consumer market research in small island developing states. I'm Jess, I'm a consultant with the World Bank working in tourism for development, and I'm excited to be here today to take you through this interesting report. Over the next 20 minutes or so, I'm going to introduce you to a recent piece of consumer market research undertaken by the World Bank as part of the Tourism Pro Blue project in the region. We'll take a look at the market segment highlighted in the research, their travel preferences and destination perceptions, and their attitudes towards sustainability. At the end of the presentation, I'll go through some recommendations from the report about how this information can be practically implemented by you in the region of West Africa. As we know, consumer market research is the process of gathering and analyzing data on consumer preferences, behaviors, and trends to understand their needs and desires. This is crucial to the tourism industry as it provides valuable insights into what tourists, and particularly what different market segments, are really looking for when they travel, how they undertake travel research, and their expectations for a destination. This type of research can be used by you in a number of ways. The first is product development. Research on consumer preferences can help you to decide the types of tourism products and experiences that align with what your customers want. Secondly, this research can assist in developing your marketing strategies, including advertising, promotions, and digital campaigns to effectively reach the audiences that you are targeting. Consumer market research can also help you to make business decisions on things like pricing, distribution channels, and investment opportunities. Finally, at a destination level, research like this can assist in developing strategic plans and prioritizing infrastructure development. So these are a few uses of this type of research. This is not just a study of consumer preferences that will end up on a bookshelf, but it's relevant information that can assist your business or destination in practical ways. Okay, now that we know how to use the research, I'll briefly go through the research methodology and objectives. The research I'm presenting today is the second phase of consumer market research under the World Bank's Tourism Pro Blue project. The first report, which is available online, researched consumers from Germany, Sweden, and the UK. That research was focused on 3 destinations: Cabo Verde, Sao Tome and Principe, and the Gambia. This second phase of research that I'm presenting today focused on consumers from France and Portugal, 2 additional key markets for the region, and included an additional destination focus of Guinea-Bissau. During the first stage, our consultants undertook extensive desk research to review existing literature on consumer trends and to understand nature-based tourism in West Africa. The qualitative research, which consisted of focus groups in France and Portugal, was the second stage with an aim of understanding travel behaviors, past travel experience, and also the level of understanding of key definitions in these markets. The questionnaire for stage 3 was delivered between August and September last year to just over 3,000 participants, divided evenly between French and Portuguese respondents. It was focused on participants who had traveled internationally in the past 5 years and had previously traveled for the purpose of one of our focus activity segments. That was relax and rejuvenation, nature-based tourism, adventure, water sports, and ecotourism. The objectives here and of the report overall were to verify and quantify the trends we had already started to see, and most importantly, to identify and size the market segments from these markets. So we'll go into the results of this market segmentation in more detail right now. When analyzing the survey, a cluster type segmentation of the survey population was used. This meant grouping survey participants based on how they responded to questions about general aspects, motivations, and travel behaviors. The analysis resulted in the identification of 5 key segments across the markets. And you can see these 5 segments on the screen right now. Eco-engaged are the largest segment by size, and they have the largest share in the Portuguese market, as Portuguese travelers seem to be relatively more aware of sustainability in their travels. Sensibly Everything and Spontaneous Adventurers come next and are fairly equal in size. These segments both skew to the French market. Pampered Escapists make up 14% of the total and have a relatively even share between France and Portugal. Relaxed Travelers, a relatively smaller cohort, have a higher share in France. Over the next few slides, I'll give a quick introduction to each of these segments, including their psychographics, demographics, and booking behaviors. These are really just snapshots of each segment, and more details are provided in the report. All right, firstly, we have the eco-engaged group. These travelers tend to be middle-aged to older, with 66% over 45 years old. They're also majority women. They're concerned about global warming and carbon emissions when they travel, and they want to see destinations that promote sustainability actions. They want to be involved in and support local communities, and they seek out authentic experiences like staying in eco-lodges or homestays. They prefer activities that allow them to immerse in local culture and nature, and they have a keen sense of adventure. When booking, they find destination inspiration mostly by speaking to friends and family. Their average spend per trip is a little lower than the total sample at almost €2,700 per person per trip. Sensibly Everything travelers are predominantly older, with 31% being over the age of 60. This group are passionate about traveling, they're very eco-aware, and they spend a lot of time researching prior to their trips. They're not spontaneous and will usually plan ahead, and they book most of the aspects of the trip themselves. In terms of activities, they look for destinations with a range of activities, but they particularly enjoy cultural, nature-based, and water sports. They spend about average on their trips. Spontaneous Adventurers are the youngest cohort, with just over half being under 40 years and are largely male. This group see life as an adventure. They're very spontaneous and try to squeeze in as much as they can on their trips. They have a desire for a range of activities, but they like to get out to remote and untouched destinations. They don't mind taking difficult roads to get there, and they're not worried about safety. They act sustainably and are happy to spend more for great experiences. They spend almost €500 more than the total sample average per person per trip. This is the group most likely to take travel recommendations from travel agents in the early stages of their booking journey as well. Pampered Escapists are predominantly older, with 76% over 45 years old, and 34% being over 60. They are also most likely women. This group are open-minded, however, they're also cautious and focused on health and safety. They seek a certain level of comfort when they travel for them and for their families. They travel to relax, so they're interested in all-inclusive packages, in mid-scale and upscale accommodations, and they're more likely than other groups to decide and plan their trip closer to their departure date. The final segment, Relaxed Travelers, are again a predominantly older crowd, with 70% over 45 years old and 38% over 60. This group are relaxed and easygoing, fit and active, and they're not worried about spending on quality accommodation and food options. Like Pampered Escapists, they want to relax and rejuvenate when they travel, and they're interested in all-inclusive packages in upscale accommodation. This group are not interested in sustainability, and they spend around €115 more per person per trip than the total sample average. Okay, now that we have an overview of the market segments, we're going to look a little more closely at some of these points to better understand segment preferences. So we'll look at priority destination attributes, activities undertaken, and booking habits, and compare these across the segments. To start, we're going to look at the features of a destination that each market segment rates as important or very important in making travel decisions. There are just a few points I'd like to highlight here. So sustainability, which is the last point on the chart, is most important to eco-engaged travelers. That's the bright green line. This group also has a tendency to rate all destination attributes as important. As you can see, it's quite high across each of these attributes. In comparison, relaxed travelers, the dark green line, are very unconcerned with sustainability, and they also seem to have lower expectations of the destination in general across the factors. Going back to the very top of the chart, we can see that natural assets are the most important factor for the group as a whole when making destination decisions. One step down, looking at safety, we can see that this is important for a lot of travelers, but it's of critical importance to eco-engaged, pampered escapists, and sensibly everything. Spontaneous adventurers and relaxed travelers are less concerned with safety when they're in a destination. And then the next point down, cultural assets, is the most important to eco-engaged and sensibly everything groups. All right, looking at the activities that travelers participate in when they're on holiday. The activities are on the left of the screen with the total sample shown in the chart in the middle. The columns to the right show the percentages of respondents from each segment that traveled for this purpose in the last 5 years. In the left column, we can see that eco-engaged travelers lead in ecotourism. And are one of the most likely segments to participate in adventure activities, along with spontaneous adventurers in light blue, there at 39%. Sensibly everything in the center do a mix of activities from nature-based tourism to water sports, but they particularly like to relax on their holidays. Pampered escapists and relaxed travelers mostly relax or enjoy natural scenery, and relaxed travelers are also the most likely to take long stay or extended trips. The next few slides we'll be looking at travel research and booking behaviors of our market segments. This chart shows us when travelers start to research for an upcoming trip. On the right of the chart, we have the departure date, and then working backwards from there, we can see that most travelers start researching around 3 to 6 months before departure. Sensibly everything also carry into the 2-month prior period. You can see that not many people at all are researching over 18 months before their trip. And then looking at the very right of the chart, as I noted in the segment overviews, pampered escapists and relaxed travelers are the groups most likely to start researching in that last month before they leave. We're now looking at the inspiration stage of the booking process. This is when travelers first start to consider traveling to a destination. Speaking to friends and family is clearly the most common inspiration across all market segments. And then spontaneous adventurers and pampered escapists will also use travel agents and tour operators for recommendations. And pampered escapists also turn to guidebooks and travel guides for inspiration. The final 2 slides in this section are looking at accommodation preferences. Hotels are the most popular form of accommodation across the group, but particularly for relaxed travelers. Eco-engaged and spontaneous adventurers are the most likely segments to stay at bed and breakfasts accommodation and at eco lodges. This is likely due to their desire to experience the local culture and contribute to local communities as they travel. When we look at the type of hotel or resort visitors stay in, mid-scale accommodation, that's 3.5 to 4 star, is most popular among most of the segments. However, pampered escapists, relaxed travelers, and even spontaneous adventurers are also staying in upscale accommodation. As we saw in the segment overview, these three segments tend to be okay with spending more money as long as they're receiving a high quality product. I'd just like to take a quick dive into traveler attitudes towards sustainability, given its relevance to ecotourism. Survey respondents were asked how they define several key terms in tourism. This gives us an idea of how they interpret a destination based on the wording we use in marketing. Here you can see the top 3 results for defining nature-based tourism on the left and ecotourism on the right. Travelers perceive nature-based tourism as exploring green areas and wide open spaces, observing wildlife, and there's that component of conserving the environment and ecosystem. In comparison, the top 3 concepts associated with ecotourism are all related to sustainability. They see ecotourism as travel to conserve the environment, avoiding wasteful consumption, and staying in eco-friendly accommodation options. This gives us a good idea of the messages we're sharing when we use these terms. Here we're looking at the importance of sustainability in trip planning for each of these segments. They could choose from a scale from the lowest importance, I don't really think about sustainability when I plan my travel, to the highest importance. Sustainability is top priority. I plan travel based on sustainable choices. The chart shows us that eco-engaged and spontaneous adventurers are more sustainably minded when it comes to trip planning. You can see with the green boxes here that very few of these travelers say either of the lower 2 options when it comes to sustainability, meaning they try to make sustainable travel choices when they're available. This next section contains results that are specific to the destinations included in the research. That's Cabo Verde, Sao Tome and Principe, the Gambia, and Guinea-Bissau. However, we can also use these results to give us a little insight into how our market segments perceive tourism in the region. In this first chart, we're looking at firstly the awareness of survey respondents about each of the destinations. The next line down is whether they have ever visited the destination, and the last line is whether they would consider visiting this place in the future. Awareness is highest for Cabo Verde and is the also the likelihood to consider the destination in the future. Sao Tome and Principe has the lowest awareness of the 4 destinations, but it has the second highest consideration for future travel. So this means it's likely that many of those who are aware of the country perceive it well. While many travelers have heard of the Gambia and Guinea-Bissau, they're not as interested in traveling to these destinations. This may be due to lack of knowledge of the tourism offerings, particularly nature-based tourism, in each of these destinations. Now we're looking specifically at the likelihood to travel to these places in the future and how that differs between our market segments. Eco-engaged and spontaneous adventurers are likely to travel to both Cabo Verde and Sao Tome and Principe, likely due to knowledge of their natural assets. Of all travelers, we can see that spontaneous adventurers are also the most likely segment to visit the Gambia and Guinea-Bissau, around 15 to 20% for these two. All right, so we've gone through all the data, but what does this mean for you? What can you take away from this research and implement for yourself? At the start of the presentation, I went over 4 ways consumer market research can be applied practically for your business or destination. Today, we're going to look at product development and strategic marketing, and I'll walk through some of the recommendations that came out of the report. For product development, the recommendations are to decide which segments you should target. The report highlights spontaneous adventurers and eco-engaged travelers as the target segments for this region. This is because they are the ones most likely to travel to the region. They are sustainability minded, and they engage in nature-based and adventure tourism. However, you can use the research to figure out which of these segments you prefer to target. The second recommendation is to find your unique selling point. That is something about your destination that is amazing and can only be found in this way in your location. Once you've found this selling point, develop products and marketing materials around it to highlight the best parts of your destination. An example for Guinea-Bissau might be a unique selling point built around its natural assets and biodiverse landscapes. These have the potential to be a catalyst for tourism in Guinea-Bissau. In Sao Tome and Principe, the main draw card could be pristine beaches and natural landscapes. This raw and untouched angle works really well for STP as a differentiator from other destinations. The final recommendation here is to develop products for your target segments based on their preferences. For the segments identified above, eco-engaged and spontaneous adventurers, this could be hiking and walking tours, gastronomical experiences focusing on local cuisines and highlighting traditional cooking methods, or products that explore nature at land or sea. I've also included here a few recommendations for marketing strategies. The first is to time marketing campaigns with booking habits. As we saw above, market segments start to plan their trips around 6 months before their departure. Marketing campaigns should start around 6 months prior to the peak season for each of these markets to gain better influence over traveler decisions when they're deciding on a destination. It's also important to use multiple information platforms to advertise. We saw in the research that travelers use multiple avenues to get information for their trips. This includes official destination websites, traveler review websites like TripAdvisor, travel blogs and forums, social media, and more. Getting the word out across multiple platforms ensures you reach a wider audience. Many of the key segments also rely on word of mouth for travel recommendations, so driving marketing messages through influencers can help to boost appeal among the core target groups. It's important to check the platforms most used by your target segments and ensure that these are your priority avenues. The third recommendation is very important. Many travelers arrange most of their trips themselves using the internet. It's essential that travel businesses, from accommodation providers to tour operators and guides, have online booking facilities integrated into their websites to make independent booking easy. And then finally, it's important to provide destination information as part of marketing strategies. Since tourism in the region is still in its infancy, familiarity with the destinations is limited among our source markets. Marketing materials should include location information, offerings for leisure, nature-based and adventure activities, and even promote sustainability actions or priorities when targeting these markets. That is all from me today. Thank you so much for joining me to go through the research, and I hope you've taken away something useful on how to use this consumer market research for your product development and marketing decisions. Thank you very much.